Welcome to this explosive breakdown of one of the most talked about moments in late-night television history. Imagine the lights of the studio beaming down on the iconic stage of Real Time with Bill Maher, where sharp wit meets unfiltered opinions. And tonight, the guest of honor is none other than the legendary Samuel L. Jackson. Known for his commanding presence in films like Pulp Fiction and the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Jackson strides onto the set with that signature swagger, his voice already booming with charisma as the audience erupts in applause. Bill Maher, ever the provocateur with his liberal-leaning commentary and no-holds-barred style, greets him warmly at first, cracking a joke about Jackson's latest role in a blockbuster where he plays a no-nonsense general barking orders at alien invaders. The crowd laughs, the energy is electric, and it seems like this is going to be just another memorable segment in a show that's been skewering politics and culture for decades. But beneath the surface pleasantries, there's a tension brewing, a clash of titans waiting to ignite, because Jackson isn't here just to plug his movie. He's got something to say, and Maher, with his history of stirring the pot on everything from wokeness to celebrity activism, is about to push all the wrong buttons. As the interview kicks off, Maher leans into his chair, microphone in hand, and tosses out a softball question about Jackson's career longevity, praising how he's evolved from blaxploitation roots to global superstardom. Jackson chuckles, his eyes twinkling under the lights, and launches into a passionate monologue about the industry's slow crawl toward diversity, recounting tales from his early days fighting for roles that didn't stereotype black actors as thugs or sidekicks. The audience nods along, sensing the authenticity in his gravelly delivery, but Maher, sensing an opportunity for his signature contrarian take, interjects with a sly remark. "Sam, you've made a fortune playing tough guys who curse like sailors. Isn't that just perpetuating the very stereotypes you're railing against?" The studio falls into a momentary hush, the kind that precedes a storm, as Jackson's smile fades ever so slightly, replaced by that steely gaze we've seen in 1,000 action scenes. What follows is not just a debate, it's a verbal showdown that escalates faster than a Tarantino script, pulling back the curtain on the raw undercurrents of Hollywood, race, and media accountability. As Jackson leans forward, his voice dropping to that ominous timbre, he counters Maher's quip with a pointed reminder of the systemic barriers he's shattered, naming dropped opportunities for actors of color and the double standards that still plague award shows. Maher, undeterred, doubles down, waving his hand dismissively as he pivots to a broader critique of cancel culture in entertainment, suggesting that icons like Jackson benefit from it while complaining about it. The back and forth intensifies, with Jackson's baritone rising in volume, peppered with those unforgettable expletives that make his speeches so quotable, while Maher's quick-fire retorts aim to deflate the momentum. Viewers at home, glued to their screens, start tweeting furiously. Hashtags like #SamVsBill and #RealTime rumble trending within minutes. But this is only the spark. The real firestorm is just beginning to build as the exchange delves deeper into personal territory, exposing fractures in their long-standing acquaintance from previous appearances on the show. Jackson, who has guested on Real Time multiple times over the years, from the Obama era to the Trump years, always bringing a dose of unapologetic truth to Maher's panel, feels the sting of what he perceives as a betrayal, a host turning a friendly chat into an ambush. Maher, for his part, defends his style as honest discourse, but the audience can sense the shift, the applause turning sporadic as the laughter dies out, and then, in a moment that will be replayed endlessly on social media clips, Jackson stands up midway through a heated rebuttal, his chair scraping loudly against the floor, declaring with thunderous conviction that he's done entertaining what he calls performative allyship from privileged pundits. The producers, caught off guard, signal frantically from the control booth, but it's too late. The legend is making his exit, striding past the stunned panelists and out the studio doors, leaving behind a stunned silence broken only by Maher's awkward attempt at a punchline. This walkout isn't just dramatic theater, it's a statement, a mic drop heard round the world, igniting debates on respect, free speech, and the role of late-night hosts in amplifying or undermining marginalized voices. As the episode cuts to commercial, the internet explodes with reactions to celebrities like Spike Lee and Jamie Foxx chiming in with support for Jackson, while conservative commentators hail Maher as a free speech warrior. But to understand the full weight of this incident, we have to rewind to the build-up, the subtle cues that foreshadowed the eruption. Jackson arrived at the HBO lot in Los Angeles that crisp autumn evening, fresh off a press junket for his new directorial debut, a gritty drama exploring police brutality through the eyes of a veteran cop. At 76, he's more vital than ever, his advocacy for social justice as fierce as his on-screen personas, from Nick Fury to Jules Winfield. Maher's team had billed the segment as a candid conversation on Hollywood's woke wars, a topic that's been catnip for the show's ratings, drawing in viewers hungry for unscripted drama. Little did they know, Jackson had come armed with statistics from recent studies on representation, ready to challenge any glib dismissals. The pre-show green room chatter was light as shared laughs over craft services and mutual gripes about network censorship, but as soon as the cameras rolled, the gloves came off. Maher's opening monologue had already set a combative tone, lambasting what he termed virtue signaling celebrities who jet to climate summits on private planes, a not-so-subtle jab that hung in the air like smoke. When Jackson entered, the contrast was stark. One man a satirist armed with sarcasm, the other a survivor of civil rights battles, his resume etched with real-world scars from protesting in the 60s alongside his late wife LaTanya. The initial rapport crumbles when Maher probes Jackson's support for defund the police movements, twisting it into a gotcha about rising crime stats in urban areas. Jackson fires back, his words slicing like a machete. "Bill, you sit in your ivory tower quoting cherry-picked data while communities like mine bleed. Don't lecture me on safety when your show's security is whiter than a Marvel boardroom." The panel, featuring a mix of pundits from left and right, shifts uncomfortably, but no one intervenes as the rhetoric escalates. Viewers later recount how Jackson's body language, clenched fists, forward lean mirrored his iconic Ezekiel 25 hours 17 minutes recitation, building to a crescendo of righteous fury. And just like that, the kickoff happens not with security escorting him out, but with Jackson choosing his own dramatic departure, flipping the script on who controls the narrative. In the aftermath, clips flood TikTok and YouTube, amassing millions of views overnight, with edits syncing the Walkout to epic soundtracks from his films. Pundits dissected on CNN and Fox, some calling it a meltdown, others a masterclass in boundary setting. But for Jackson, it's personal, a line in the sand against being reduced to a token voice on a show that's profited from edginess without always footing the bill for the fallout. As we dive deeper into this saga, remember, this isn't isolated. It's the culmination of years of simmering tensions in an industry where black excellence is celebrated but black anger is often pathologized. Stay tuned as we unpack the layers, from the racial undertones to the media machine that amplified the chaos. Picking up right where the shockwaves left off, let's transport ourselves back into the heart of that HBO studio, where the air thickens with unspoken histories as Samuel L. Jackson's chair empties, his footsteps echoing like the final notes of a symphony gone awry. Bill Maher, his face a mask of bemused deflection, turns to the camera with that trademark smirk, muttering something about passion over politeness. But the damage is done. The segment's viral trajectory is locked in, propelling this from water-cooler fodder to a full-blown cultural referendum. To grasp why this exchange detonated so spectacularly, we must excavate the ideological fault lines that have long divided these two entertainment juggernauts. Maher, the son of a Jewish network executive, built his empire on HBO by blending stand-up irrelevance with political jabs that court controversy. From mocking religious fundamentalism to questioning progressive sacred cows like identity politics. He's interviewed Jackson before, back in 2012 during an election cycle buzzing with Obama's re-election, where their banter flowed like aged whiskey. Easy, insightful, with Jackson dropping gems on voter suppression that had the panel roaring. But that was then. Fast forward to 2025, and the landscape has shifted. Post-pandemic, amid deepfakes and polarized echo chambers, Maher's show has leaned harder into anti-woke crusades, episodes railing against de-hires in Hollywood and speech-chilling trigger warnings, positions that earned him applause from centrists weary of extremes but alienated allies like Jackson, who spent decades amplifying black stories through his production company. Jackson, born in Chattanooga, Tennessee, In 1948, carries the weight of the civil rights era in his expelled from college for protesting segregation. He channeled that fire into acting, collaborating with Spike Lee on films like Do the Right Thing that confronted racism head-on. His activism isn't performative, it's etched in partnerships with the Congressional Black Caucus and speeches at the UN on global inequality. So when Maher, in this fateful episode, steers the conversation toward Jackson's endorsement of reparations legislation, a bill gaining traction in Congress, it's not mere curiosity, it's a minefield. Maher quips, "Sam, reparations sound noble, but who's cutting the check? My guilt-ridden liberal friends?" The audience titters nervously, but Jackson's response is a masterstroke of precision fury. "Bill, it's easy to joke when your ancestors' ledgers don't include slave auctions, so try reading Ta-Nehisi Coates instead of skimming headlines." The room temperature plummets as Maher bristles, accusing Jackson of playing the race card to dodge policy talk, a phrase that lands like a slap, evoking every microaggression Jackson has navigated from casting couches to red carpets. What ensues is a torrent of words, Jackson enumerating stats of black wealth gaps widened by redlining, incarceration rates ballooning under war on drugs policy, while Maher counters with anecdotes from his stand-up specials, painting progressives as hypocrites who virtue signal without sacrifice. The panel chimes in sporadically, a conservative commentator nodding along to Maher, a progressive author fumbling for solidarity, but it's clear this is Jackson versus the machine, a lone voice against the host's orchestrated ambush. As the clock ticks past the allotted time, producers whisper into earpieces, urging a commercial break, but Jackson, sensing the manipulation, rises like a phoenix, his voice a roar. "I've wasted enough breath on this circus. America's got real fights, not your gotcha games." He adjusts his blazer, nods to the applauding section of the crowd, a largely young and diverse, and exits stage left, the door swinging shut with a thud that reverberates through live feeds. Backstage, whispers swirl. Was this scripted for ratings? Jackson's team denies it vehemently, releasing a statement praising his unyielding integrity, while HBO spins it as spirited debate emblematic of free expression. But the real fallout unfolds online, where X, formerly Twitter, becomes a battlefield. #boycott Maher trends alongside #StandWithSam, with users splicing clips of Jackson's walkout with his Avengers lines for meme gold. Celebrities weigh in. Denzel Washington calls it a teachable moment for white hosts, while Maher's pal Jon Stewart tweets a nuanced take on comedy's tightrope. News outlets from the New York Times to Breitbart parse the politics, some framing Jackson as oversensitive, others as a truth-teller exposing media selective outrage. Yet, to truly appreciate the depth, consider the personal stake. Jackson and Maher share a mutual respect forged over industry events, golf outings even, where they'd bond over scotch and scripts. This betrayal stings deeper because of that familiarity, turning a colleague into a combatant. In the hours post-broadcast, Jackson heads to his Los Angeles home, phone buzzing with messages from supporters, but he chooses silence initially, letting the clip speak for itself. Maher, meanwhile, films a solo monologue for the next show, defending his right to punch up and down, but cracks show in his delivery, a hesitation betraying the unintended cost. This incident ripples outward, sparking campus discussions on media literacy and panel diversity, with universities screening the clip in communications classes. It also boosts Jackson's next project, a memoir on resilience that's now pre-ordered in droves, proving once again that his off-screen gravitas rivals any role. As we peel back more layers, we'll explore how this moment mirrors broader societal fractures, from the 2024 elections' racial divides to Hollywood's reckoning with Oscars so white sequels. But for now, pause and reflect. In an age of sound bites, Jackson's full-throated exit reminds us that some conversations demand walking away, not watering down. The script of celebrity clashes writes itself, but heroes like Sam ensure it's never forgettable. Now, let's zoom out from the studio chaos to the broader canvas of cultural combustion, where Samuel L. Jackson's bold ejection from Bill Maher's set becomes not just a footnote in talk show lore but a catalyst for national introspection on race, rhetoric, and the responsibilities of platforms wielding influence. Picture the morning after, November 14, 2025, dawns with news cycles ablaze. From morning shows recapping the Maher meltdown to podcasts dissecting every inflection in Jackson's parting shot, the video, unedited and raw, garners over 50 million views by noon. Algorithms feasting on the outrage as shares spike across demographics, a Gen Z remixing it with trap beats, boomers debating it over coffee. Why does this resonate so profoundly? Because it crystallizes the exhaustion felt by many in marginalized communities, tired of being invited to the table only to have their plates yanked away mid-meal. Jackson, in his departure, embodies a reclamation of agency, a refusal to perform civility for white comfort, echoing historical standpoints from Rosa Parks to Colin Kaepernick. Maher, unwittingly or not, represents the archetype of the enlightened interrogator, a well-meaning perhaps, but blind to how his questions, laced with skepticism, often serve to center his worldview over the guest's lived reality. To unpack this, rewind to the exchange's pivot point, when discussion veers from film to activism. Maher invokes a 2023 study from the Heritage Foundation claiming affirmative action inflates minority hires without merit. A cherry-picked stat Jackson dismantles with data from UCLA's Hollywood Diversity Report, highlighting how black leads still comprise under 10% of top-grossing films despite audience demand. The volley intensifies SMR jabs at Hollywood elites ignoring flyover concerns. Jackson retorts with tales of typecasting that nearly derailed his career pre-Shaft remake. It's intellectual fencing at its finest, blades flashing under hot lights, until the personal creeps in. Maher references a past Jackson tweet criticizing police brutality post-George Floyd, framing it as one-sided, prompting Jackson's thunderclap. One-sided, try surviving the sides your commentary ignores. Bill, I've got the hospital scars to prove it. The audience gasps, a revelation tying back to Jackson's 1960s activism, when he was arrested at a protest and beaten, a story he'd shared lightly before but now weaponizes for impact. This vulnerability flips the power dynamic, exposing Maher's detachment to his show. After all, films in a bubble of affluence, far from the streets Jackson champions. As Jackson rises, the walkout unfolds in slow-motion glory for replay. He pauses at the desk, locks eyes with Maher, and delivers his ingro, keep preaching tolerance from your throne, I'll be out here living I did, before vanishing into the wings. The immediate aftermath is pandemonium. Producers huddle, deciding against bleeping Jackson's colorful language, opting for authenticity that only fuels the fire. Social media erupts in waves, allies flood with #JusticeForSam, sharing essays on tone policing and discourse. Detractors meme Maher as the victim, with captions like when facts trigger fragility. Late-night peers react to Jimmy Fallon jokes gently about needing exit strategies for awkward chats, while Trevor Noah, from his global perch, lauds Jackson's elegant rage on his Substack. But the ripple effects extend to policy. Within days, the reparations bill Jackson supports gains co-sponsors, cited in floor speeches as emblematic of ignored voices. Hollywood feels it too. A studio's greenlight more diverse panels for press tours, wary of similar blow-ups. Jackson, ever the strategist, breaks his silence on The Breakfast Club, where he expands on the incident with host Charlamagne Tha God, weaving in humor. Bill's like that uncle at Thanksgiving who thinks he's deep, but his takes are mashed potatoes, lumpy and overdone. The laughter peels away tension, humanizing the icon while underscoring his point. Dialogue thrives on equality, not interrogation. Maher, in a follow-up episode, invites a psychologist to discuss passionate discourse, but skips a direct apology, instead quipping, "Sam's a force of nature, I just provided the wind." Critics ban it as tone-deaf, ratings dipping 15% as viewers migrate to more empathetic formats. This schism highlights a generational chasm. Maher's boomer irony clashing with millennial authenticity demands a mirroring divides in the 2024 election where cultural warriors on both sides alienated the middle. Yet, silver linings emerge: increased subscriptions to Jackson's Audible series on civil rights history, and a spike in donations to his chosen charities. As we trace these threads, it's clear this wasn't mere celebrity spat, it's a referendum on who's allowed to steer conversations on race without repercussion. Jackson's kickoff forces a mirror to the industry, questioning if shows like Real Time are evolving or calcifying. In the weeks that follow, reconciliation rumors swirl. A joint appearance at a comedy festival. Jackson demurs, focused on his directorial follow-up, a biopic on medgrievers that now carries extra weight. For fans, it's a lesson in boundaries. Sometimes, the strongest statement is silence after the storm. This moment, etched in digital eternity, reminds us that true power lies not in enduring disrespect, but in defining when enough is enough. Delving deeper into the anatomy of this televised tempest, let's humanize the gladiators behind the glamour, starting with Samuel L. Jackson, whose life story reads like an epic script. He'd narrate himself with grit, glory, and a dash of profanity for spice. Born Samuel Leroy Jackson on December 21, 1948, in the segregated South, he grew up idolizing Westerns and civil rights icons, stuttering through childhood until a high school play unlocked his vocal thunder. Morehouse College beckoned, but expulsion for protesting apartheid in 1968 forged his activist spine. Reinstates, he graduated with a psych degree, channeling unrest into theater with the Negro Ensemble Company. Hollywood's gates creaked open in the 70s with bit parts in Blackula and The Discreet Charm of the Bourgeoisie, but it was 91's Jungle Fever that ignited his ascent, earning a Cannes nod and Spike Lee's Eternal collab. Then came 1994's Pulp Fiction at Travolta's Vincent Vega foil, Jules, quoting scripture with Ezekiel's Vengeancia, cementing Jackson as cinema's foul-mouthed philosopher, an Oscar nom chasing him ever since. Off-screen, he's a philanthropist par excellence, founding the One for the Boys Prostate Cancer Awareness, inspired by his father's death, mentoring at-risk youth via his Samuel L. Jackson Foundation, and voicing anti-smoking PSAs with that unmistakable bark. Marriage to Latanya Richardson since '82 anchors him, their daughters Oya producer carrying the torch. Fast forward to 2025, at 76, Jackson's Nick Fury arc in the MCU nears finale with Secret Wars, but his passion project, directing Evers, channels 60s fire into modern mirrors. This Marklash, it's vintage Salman unflinching, as when he called out Bill Clinton's welfare reform in '96 or Trump's shithole country's remark in '18. Now, flip to Bill Maher, born January 20, 1956, in New York to a Jewish dad and Catholic mom. His Catholic school upbringing bred skepticism toward dogma, fueling politically incorrect's 1993 debut on Comedy Central, cancelled post 9/11 for Islamofascism quips that dared touch sacred cows. HBO's Real Time revived him in 2003, a 90-minute forum blending monologue, interviews, and overtime debates, netting 22 Emmys and a net worth north of $140 million. Maher's shtick, libertarian-leaning liberal, pro-pot, anti-theocracy, but his new rules segments skewer sacred cows left and right, veganism as cult, Trump as clown, Biden as dotterer. He's dated luminaries from Ann Coulter to Karine Steffans, but his personal life's private, save for a Manhattan pad and vintage car collection. Controversies dog him. 2017's N-word slip on air, apologized with donation to ACLU. COVID lockdown jabs earning conservative fans. Trans rights critiques alienating progressives. This episode, Maher and Jackson shared cordial Historia. 2012's chat on Romney's Binders of Women, 2018's weed legalization banter, but 2025's climate, post-2024's polarized vote, amplified drifts. The interview's genesis, producers eyed Jackson post-Evers trailer drop, pitching woke Hollywood versus real talk to boost sagging youth demo. Rehearsal vibes were chilla green room scotch, script swaps but live. Maher's ad-lib on reparations as grift, pulled from a recent pod, detonates. Jackson's counter, a litany of unpayable debts from Tulsa 21 massacre to Flint's water delivered with preacher's cadence. Audience riveted. Maher's parry, invoking personal responsibility. A. Thomas Sowell, feels academic to Jackson's experiential ethos, escalating to shouts over crosstalk. The kickoff peaks when Jackson, mid-sentence on voter ID laws as Jim Crow 2.0, senses time's up signal and bolts, yelling the Saint dialogue its dismissal. Exit achieved. The void sucks in reactions. Panelist Van Jones mediates too late, audience splits innovation, post-tape, Jackson debriefs with manager, venting on hosts treating guests like pi a tilde plus minus odds, while Maher quips to crew, Sam's method acting again. Leakage hits X first a grainy fan vid at 10M loops then official upload. Public verdict, split, 62% side Jackson per YouGov poll, praising authenticity 38% back Maher for tough questions. Celeb chorus swells the Oprah texts support, Snoop Dogg memes pass the Dutchie, not the hot take. Industry fallout, HBO execs convene crisis PR. Scripting Maher's non-apology Jackson's Agent Field's docu-series pitches on the spat. Personally, it heals slow and Jackson golfs it out with Denzel. Maher intros a unity ep with Michelle Obama. Broader, it catalyzes. NAACP chapters host watch parties dissecting bias. Comedy schools teach walkout workshops. Jackson's memoir sales soar. Chapters on speaking truth to power excerpted in The Atlantic. Maher's book tour dodges the elephant, focusing on irony's death. This duel underscores comedy's double-edged laughter as lubricant or litmus. For Jackson, it's validation, his stutter conquered, now silencing skeptics. For Maher, a recalibration, edge without erasure. In this post-truth era, their clash spotlights dialogues dance a step wrong, and you're out the door.